Hello, my name is Bruno Zumbo. I'm a professor and distinguished university scholar at the University of British Columbia, and this is part of the 2023 UBC Psychometric Research Webinar Series, and with the University of British Columbia. The webinar today is going to be dealing with statistical analysis with Jamovi. And this is the first of a three-part series that I'll be doing in this first wave, and there'll be more as time goes on, where we are looking at the use of advanced statistical methods. Today, the work we're going to be doing is getting you familiar with Jamovi and doing fairly basic statistical analyses in Jamovi. The topic today is I want to give you an introduction, briefly show you the Jamovi website, tell you a bit about it and how it's downloaded, point you towards the user's guide and manual, and then begin to a short demonstration showing how we're importing data, assigning variable types. I want to tell you a bit about two particular things that are quite useful with Jamovi in this demonstration is to learn a bit about modules, which are kind of like, and the assumption I'm hoping here is that you will have had some contact with R and our various statistical packages of some sort, even just a little bit. But modules are like packages in R or routines and other packages, and I can show you a bit of that. I want to tell you a bit about the syntax mode and show you an example, some basic descriptive stats, and a little bit about correlation and scatter plots and such. This is a snapshot of the Jamovi website, which you have there at the very top in blue. https://www.jamovi.org, and a fantastic project that's gone on by some outstanding scholars. And you can learn a bit more about what Jamovi is. But the key thing at this point is that it's free and open in the sense that there are developers developing new techniques, new routines as things get moved over to Jamovi. Jamovi uses R, so it does R integration. So Jamovi is built on top of the R package. And basically what it is, in some senses, what it's doing is it's accessing our code, and it's using a couple of things. One is a data window, so you can see what the data looks like, much like you would in something like Excel. And then what you'll see is, and you get a great deal of control there about the data. Then you'll see different analyses that'll pop down in Windows. You'll see analyses that they'll come across the top of the bar. I hope you can see my mouse there a little bit, the top part, and a drop-down windows, and there's a graphical user interface that's there, and it's fairly easy access. So it's running R underneath, but the commands that it's implementing are fairly restrictive and commonly used, or at least that's the hope anyway. By the third webinar today, you'll see us actually showing you a little bit about how to actually even use R commands to do something in particular and do something a little unique. So you can download it, or you can run Jamovi on the cloud. And the key thing, it's free, it uses R, and it's really it's a layer on top of it. It's a way of accessing, in a very routinized, controlled way, accessing R code. And then the idea is as that grows, you'll be able to use it, but you'll also begin to learn a little bit about R code, how to write R code, and who knows, beginning to use some combination of Jamovi, something like RStudio, and writing R code and using built-in code as well, as you develop your expertise over several years. So I've told you a little bit here. It's a project that was funded to develop a free and open statistical platform, intuitive to use, by the latest developments in statistical methodology, and it's community driven is what the whole idea, and where anyone can develop and publish analyses and make them available to a wide audience. I wanted to highlight to you that if you look over at the resources on the web page, one of them is the user's guide. And I think that's very important. There's a library. There's, of course, a package called JMVR that I'll be telling you about later, and it's part of a later webinar in which I show you actually how to use and even in some cases adapt slightly some R code to do some analyses for yourself. So you're going to start gaining confidence in built-in selecting options, and then over time, you're going to find yourself accessing and using Jamovi really almost as a smaller form of something called RStudio. So you'll be able to use the different tools that are available to you, all freely available. You'll learn that one of the first things here is that you can install it on Mac and Windows. Actually, there's even an iPad version, Linux and Chromebooks. I run it on Windows. It's also something important for you to make sure that you have something you can access on the Mac and on Windows. And this manual, actually, the user guide, is actually quite helpful. It talks about the data spreadsheet, etc. So I urge you to take a look at that as well. Going to turn our attention to a demonstration, and really with some data that we have, a very small data set, show you how to import data, or perhaps you can even do it so you enter your own data if you wish. Think a little bit about data types or variable types, what are modules, what is syntax mode, and a couple very brief descriptive kind of analyses and scatter plots, just to give you a feel of how to access the data itself. I can assume you'll have some exposure to using some kind of things like even Excel or something like this, so you can get a sense of it. But Jamovi is fairly straightforward. There's lots of tools there. There's a book that you can access as well. If we go back, there's actually Learning Statistics with Jamovi. It's an excellent textbook introducing you to actually a very powerful, very nice lens of how to learn and use statistics, but also getting you to use some Jamovi as well. All right, so let's see if we can switch our attention now and take a look at Jamovi itself. This is what Jamovi looks like. You'll see there is what they call a variable view, which we're going to see at the moment. There's nothing there other than three variables I call ABC. So when you start a data file or you launch Jamovi with nothing, just blank, this is what comes up. And there's the data tab, there's a variables tab, the analyses tab. I'll tell you about all these different modules and a little bit about things that you can edit, some text and links and stuff and things of that nature. So let's start actually by importing some data. And there's a special import that Jamovi has. I always browse to make sure that I can find where I have my data. One that I'm interested in, we're going to import Microsoft Excel. But actually, if you go here, it imports automatically, including value labels, variable labels, variable names, if you wish. You can access it all through. You can do open a Jamovi file, a text file, or a JSON file, Excel, SX, SPSS in a couple of different formats. Actually, even an R data file, a Stata, SAS, or JASP. JASP is another piece of software, which is really a very nice free software, very powerful. I'm working with Jamovi today, but you'll see that JASP is very powerful as well. Before I do that, though, I actually want to show you what my data, what the data file looks like. This is what it looks like here. I have on the first row, I've decided to put in the variable name. A small little data file with 15 rows of data. Two continuous variables, called predictor. I'm imagining almost like a regression, if you wish. So this would be like an X variable, outcome would be Y, and I have a categorical variable that I call employed. in that manner there. So if I go back to Jamovi, I can now go back to Jamovi and say, fine, let us do a special import. I always browse to make sure I have the correct one, and it's called video example, and it's an Excel file data. And there we are. We can see it. Unfortunately, the very first time, if you start sort of anew with a data file, these ABC is the default that it creates. I just highlight them and get rid of them because it actually needs something to launch. So it's created there. So the first thing I do then is save it, save as, and again I browse to make sure. And let's just call it video example. Little mocked up data file that I've created here. The next thing I want to tell you a little bit about, and you could do this importing SPSS data files, SAS, CSV files in Excel, and so it's really quite a powerful tool. Like any data importing, I always like to make sure that what's been imported is correct, so please go about and check that closely. I want to show you a little bit about variable types, and if we go here, well, actually, it's even easier when I go this way. We have predictor, we have outcome, and we have employed. Predictor, we can even give it a description. This is, we could call this an X variable if you want, just as a name for it. This would be a Y variable. And this is, I'm not just going to call it employment status, if you wish. That's quite useful there. We can now see it. Typically, I save files. Often you'll see a little reminder. It comes, your file has been saved. If we look at predictor, this is a continuous variable, as you can see there. There's 4 options: nominal, which is your categorical; ordinal, which is your ordered categorical; continuous, one called ID, which is really the participant ID, or what we used to call at one time the subject ID. It's actually a different file. I don't have a subject ID here. And actually, this ID is, I actually kind of encourage people to have it for a variety of reasons, not the least of which, in certain analyses, it actually becomes a variable of use. So it's, it's continuous, it's in decimal points, or you could do it in integers if you wanted. You could also specify missing values. So I could say I can add a missing value, which is, let's say, 99. That would allow me to do right there. So you see now that 99 is a missing. I don't have any 99s, at least I hope I don't. And then we have it right there. Again, I always like to save it just to make sure that everything's been saved properly. Terrific. Same thing with outcome. It's a continuous variable. That's terrific. Employed is interesting. It is nominal, categorical. We're going to do it as integers, although you could do it as text as well. I could do it as integers. And it's a very powerful technique. You can also add new variables or compute new variables, transform them. Here you could, if you wanted, you could also add a value label. So 1, in my case, let's call 1 full-time, and 2 is part-time, and 3 is unemployed. Now, don't worry too much about the 1, 2, or 3, because in fact, the order doesn't matter at all, because that's purely nominal. These are purely categories there, so you'll see it. No, we're not going to create new variables. We move that back up, and you'll actually see here that in fact, hopefully I got it to work properly. Terrific. There we go. And we see we do a save. I do kind of like a control S, like anything of that nature there. A couple of things I want to note is, so we've seen variables there. We have employment status and such. You can see the data window looks like an Excel spreadsheet, really. And then analyses. There's a basic package that comes in Jamovi, but the great thing with Jamovi is this community development where new routines are constantly being added and updated. And you'll actually see many of them across here. All these different images and names are different modules that are out there. Where you would install them is you would go to the Jamovi library, and you'll see, for example, here I've already installed Scatter version 1.2.0, and if there was an update, it would actually say update, and you could run it. That's different types of what they call explorative or exploratory plots, scatter plots, and such. And it actually will go under the exploration menu there. RG Editor is a way of actually editing our code, and we're going to see a little bit in doing our own R code. But you've got a general linear analysis or GLM, which is actually, and it actually has mixed models, generalized linear models, generalized mixed models, etc. Very powerful tool. Sort of a nice, and if you don't have it, you would just say press install, and it'll install it. That's mediation, Bayesian analysis, median moderation. There's all sorts. Surveys tools, which are already summary plots for survey data, path analysis, robust statistics, which I've already created, right? And very powerful tool doing graphical based data analysis. They call it FlexPlot. It's actually developed by the developer there is Justin 5, and it's already installed on my system. I've got this one, which actually uses ggStats plot, which is the R package ggStats plot, and it's already installed on my system because I'm actually going to use it and show you it. Here's a nice example of update. So you would press update, you'll see it comes up. It's now updating it, and it's a package I use for kind of item response theory analysis. Little window comes up, etc. That was not planned. That was a nice addition. And you'll see the ones that I sort of make use of the most, particularly in modules. We've contributed a module. Lucas Friesen's one of my former graduate students, and a colleague of mine, Ed Kroc. And Lucas is the main driver behind it. It's already installed there. It's called PsychoPDA. Does psychometrics and post-data analysis, certain kinds of non-parametric item response theory. It'll do kinds of reliability coefficients, including the ordinal kinds of coefficients. It'll do ROC curves, so you can get area under the curve, and you can get sensitivity, specificity, cut scores, etc. So it's a very powerful technique. And this one here, which I do also make access of, which actually is coming up in a couple of webinars where we're actually going to put in some R code, and I'll show you how to actually do that. And you can change it, and they appear up across here, and then you access them literally by clicking on them that way. One last thing that I want to show you is that I urge you to make sure that this goes on what's called syntax mode, because syntax mode is, and again, I've saved it for myself, mostly because I made some small changes. Syntax mode is very powerful because you'll see it actually will not only show you the results, but also go about and actually show you the R code, the R syntax, the code. And this allows you to get more control over your use of analyses. Well, let's do some basic descriptives. This is a very, frequency is actually a bit of a misnomer here, because there's actually inference that you're doing here. Binomial tests, goodness of fit tests, log linear regression, etc., and then some Bayesian things. For purely descriptive, I'll go to survey tools, and I'll take something like employed, and I can get some very basic options right there. I can get grouped data. That's my frequency count there. I can put the frequency labels on the bottom. It's kind of boring because there's 5 each of full-time, unemployed, and part-time. Don't worry about the order, because remember, that's the whole point. It's purely, it's unordered categorical. And I can also, of course, turn it into percentages or frequencies in that way. This package, like a lot of packages, allows you to do, it's a couple different places where you can get different, similar kind of statistics. Here it is for continuous variables, and you can actually get a box plot. You can see the actual data. You can actually see what's called a violin plot there. It's kind of it gives you a sense of where the data is distributed. And you can actually see the data, or you can remove the data without it, or put it there in that manner. Very powerful tool. You'll see again that it's been updated. The results there update, and you can actually see the R code that's in there. You can look at results overall. You can copy or export them. You can actually export them as PDF. You can leave notes. You can do all of that, or you can actually go into the results themselves, and you can copy the image or export that image, or copy all the analyses, or even remove the whole set of them as well. And see, if you click on it here, it actually brings back the commands up the command window there. What I'll sometimes do, just to clear the mess, so I'll remove all of my output that way. Very last thing that I'll sometimes do, just so that you know, is there's basic descriptive stats here. So I'll put in let's put in our 2 continuous variables, just the mean, the median, the min, the maximum standard deviation. You can actually increase the cut. You can it gives you the mode, or certain percentiles if you want them, interquartile range, variance, skewness, kurtosis, test of normality, standard error of the mean, and outliers, etc. And different plots if you want. You can do a histogram, very powerful tool, and a histogram and a density plot, which we'll actually do. I'll show you how to do as a command later. To actually run it, there it is. That's the commands underneath it: histogram, true, density, true, mode. You can do box plots. It'll add a box plot underneath. It'll add what's called the violin data on either side to give you a sense of where the data is most dense. You could even jitter the data. You can put in the mean, which is in this case a square, as well as the median, etc. You can do bar plots like this. There's also, this is just basically a plot, a sort of bar plot itself. It's only one variable in that sense. And you see here for the other outcome, for the outcome variable as well. And you can even do frequency tables. Frequency tables get a little much for the continuous variables, because there's a lot of options, and so it really isn't a great way of doing it that way. But you can get a sense here that of the various kinds of analyses that you can do. Again, let me just clear our window out so we can see it a little bit there. And let me do one last thing under exploration. Let's do a scatter plot, and let's choose our predictor is X, outcome is Y, and look, fairly straightforward scatter plot that you can see there. You can put a linear a straight line through it if you wish. You can even put the standard error on the line through it there. That's the standard error. That's an ordinary least squares. You can get rid of the linear one. You can do a smooth one instead, which is your low S. Again, with the standard error there. You can even show the marginals, which is this one here is the distribution of outcome. A little hard to do. You have to turn your head. It's distribution of the predictor. You can instead do it with box plots. It gives you a sense of where most of the data is, in fact. So if you can see, most of the data is actually in this range here. In fact, there's only one point way down there. And if you want, you can even break it down by, and this is ugly looking because there's a lot of weird data, but you can see there, we could probably do that as a straight line just to clean it up a little bit. What a mess. What a mess there. And you can see all the different box plots and marginal distributions, etc. The idea here is to give you a sense, and if you wished, you could actually go there, you can copy the image, or you can export it into some PDF. So we can call it video example, and then we can just literally export it, and it'll create a PDF with just that in it, in that folder wherever you choose to leave it. Hope we got a good chance to get a sense of what we're doing the first time around, and look forward to the next videos. Thank you.